So my creative partner, Robert Kondo, who made the Dam Keeper together, we have this thing called the Tonko house therapy. So basically what it is that sitting down in a room, just two of us, and one asks questions about your past and feelings and sometimes pains, and the other one just keeps answering, and you just keep digging deep and deep and deep until you get to a point where sometimes there's a feeling you don't even realize, but oftentimes that is what's driving you every day. And we love, obviously we try to get inspiration from outside, but also it's important to kind of look inside, look within, and dig deeper and try to find something that you may not have realized before. Right at this point at Tonko House, we try to use that as the first step to come up with the story or the world or the vision of what we do. It's interesting, I think, we try to play the objective role with each other. So if there is an aha moment, it's actually the other person who finds, oh my God, that's our story. So for example, the feature-length story of the Dam Keeper, in the beginning we did not want to do because we just did the short, and just because short got some exposure, it didn't feel right to just move on to another project of the Dam Keeper. As we were doing this therapy, therapy session between two of us, there was a story that I shared with Robert, and it just really became painful. It wasn't about, we weren't really talking about a story at all. We're just talking about our past and ourselves and our feelings towards certain people. And the other person just keeps asking really tough questions. And then when you start to become really vulnerable, sometimes we share things we've never shared even with our wives, and that's, so one of the moments we had was that Robert responded to one of the stories that I shared, and he said, oh my God, that's our pig. Now, I think we have reason to make the Dam Keeper feature. So that's, without getting into details of what it is, there was that aha moment, but from the objective point of view. It's really hard to look at some things, these days, in the world. There are a lot of challenges we have ahead, and as human beings, there are a lot of things that we just want to look away, but we just have to have this objective view of what's really happening in the world. Otherwise, it'll be really too painful. But at the same time, what's also important is how you internalize it, how you perceive what's going on, and just bring your emotional reaction to it, and that becomes your point of view. So I think the balance of it is really what makes you who you are, I guess, and I'm assuming, storytellers or the artists or the filmmakers are always it's really difficult for us to not project that balance of your objective view versus your subjective, perception, and interjecting your personal reaction or emotional reaction to what's going on around you. I try to look at the world around me objectively just so that I can really understand. But of course, as a human, it's very difficult not to separate myself from that. It's so painful to see certain things, or if so, happy, like you get so excited to see certain things too, because you just project your own feeling towards something, People that I admire, especially the leaders that I admire, always are able to do that kind of collective, objective understanding of the feelings people are going through, just so you can work with different people in a very objective way, But the good leaders also bring in their personal sort of subjective view into it, just so that they're personable. But the balance is so hard to strike sometimes. Sometimes you put too much of your own self, or the other way around. You're so sort of separate from what's happening. I think Dam Keeper being our first film, the only really film that's been released, and both of us are just so not experienced as directors and writers. I definitely don't think it was conventional. We went by the books because we didn't have a book. It was really us trying to figure out as we went. Embarrassingly, a lot of failures. And but one thing we try to keep in mind was, first of all, we wanted to make sure that we would enjoy it. As an audience member, and we bring in our trusted friends who we respect as storytellers, or who we respect their opinions, to get their objective view and fresh eye. That's really important for us, because it's easy to get lost in your own, personal site. We definitely feel the support and excitement from the community, which is just incredibly amazing for us, But at the same time, that becomes a pressure, because we want to do as good or even better than what people expect. But I do think it's one of the biggest traps, or one of the biggest challenges for creatives to face, to feel like you have to be perfect every time, or at least you try to pursue perfection every time, and we're definitely one of them. We definitely want to make sure it's good, and there is this short film we're about to finish, and we keep saying like, oh my God, this is not gonna hold up, and people are gonna complain, and but at the same time, if we call ourselves storytellers, we have to keep telling stories. And it's really important that that pressure or the fear of people not liking it doesn't, stop you. Because I think a lot of people do stop because of the fear that you may not, achieve the standard that you set for yourself, or even someone else set for yourself. Art is really not about perfection. Art is, human, and human isn't perfect. Because it's so easy to just stop because we don't want to put out something we don't like or we are not proud of. But if we don't share our story, or if we don't create something, then we can't call ourselves filmmakers or the artists, or we have to put it out, even if it's scary, it's just as scary as hell. It's okay, just we have to keep putting it out. That's the only way for us to learn and be better. So that's our philosophy. It's easier said than done. It's really hard. We are scared of what people think, of course, but also that's the only way for us to get better. As a painter, so like my career has been always this a painter who worked in animation, as an art director, and now I'm trying to direct. But it doesn't mean that I stopped being a painter. But painting is just like the same. You can never be perfect at first. There's a difference between being okay with wrong brushstrokes. And it doesn't matter if it's wrong or right. It does matter. So in other words, you have to go for the right stroke. It's really important that you actually think about what's the best way to make it right, but you go for it. Then if it's the wrong stroke, then you realize, of course it's really devastating, but you do it again. So it's not the same as it doesn't matter, wrong or right. Then why do you do it? You have to go for the right stroke. and yet you have to be okay that you put your 100%, but then you end up making a mistake and you do it again. I feel like that process is how, at least for me, how I grew as a painter, and hopefully as a storyteller and a filmmaker, that's how I do it too. It's like playing baseball. I grew up playing baseball. You want to win, you know. There's no such a thing that the winning doesn't matter. It does matter because that's what the game is all about, you know. The sport of baseball is about winning the game, but it's important to be okay with losing it. The most painful thing is to put your 100% and realize you can achieve it. That's the most painful thing, and that's why a lot of people either will, you know, kind of face away from it, like kind of run away from it by not trying, or trying, and all you try is the game that you know you can win. You know, so you're trying, but you're not really challenging yourself. Because the hardest thing is to find out that you put your 100% and you find out you're not good enough. But that's where the growth is. We all know that, but it's so hard. For me, it's hard too. But we know that's the only way. So philosophically, that's how I would like to approach, you know. You know, obviously, even now, of course, and we think it's totally understandable that we are known for more our visual styles and, you know, what we can bring visually, you know, to the project. And we have to rely on that for now, unfortunately, because people who don't know us, of course, if I were to invest myself, I haven't done anything to prove myself as a storyteller just yet, you know, and hopefully, you know, but that shouldn't stop us, because, you know, we have to start somewhere, and also we're learning, we're getting better at it. We really believe there's a growth in it too. So we may not have proved ourselves or practiced. We are in it right now, learning, and how can we convince? It's a very good question. You know, we might rely some of that. You know, we might rely on our visual artwork. So hopefully somebody thinks, "Oh my God, it looks great!" You know, but you know, we do have a screenwriter partner on our feature film. But the next short film we actually wrote and directed ourselves, and you know, we just have to keep making, and just hopefully people start to recognize the type of story that we want to communicate. Sometimes I feel like I think we in our industry we have a tendency to just put character too much to, you know, too separate from the world or the environment. I think just traditionally we want to always showcase characters. You know, obviously audience as an audience, we are following the characters, so of course. Philosophically, of course, but I think visually, you know, sometimes you can make a character moment not buying, you know, by not showing too much. And sometimes you want to blend the character, just almost getting, you know, putting the character back in, you know, lost in the space of the environment to tell the emotional state of that character. So I think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve emotionally in that scene. Obviously, I love characters, you know, the environment isn't really, you know, my strength, you know, but if you start using both, I think you can tell a greater range of story, I feel like. I think both Robert and I always pull things from what we see, of course, you know, design-wise especially, like, you know, I think that's why we always talk about observation, you know, because in particular, my strength is in lighting, but character is the same way. When I'm with people, when I'm just in the environment where there are a lot of people, all I look at is their characters, you know, so not necessarily just the appearance, nose, or the, you know, the shape of the eyes. It's more about who they are, Of course, you don't know them, but you start to kind of guess their life, their story. There's something to it that's just really fun, just looking at their attitude, their fashion, their gestures, like every bit of information you gather, you realize, oh, this person must be this. And you might be wrong, totally, but there's something to it that you can use as an inspiration. And more than that, I feel like we end up using our close friends as our character inspiration quite a bit. There are a couple of characters we wrote recently, I can never tell them, but we use our very close friends as a model. A lot of the books that I read, like literature books I read, are usually the ones that can find beautiful story in everyday lives. Even good fantasy, fantastical stories or movies, like for example Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki's movies, they're all relatable, although a lot of them are fantastical, stories that audience can always engage as something that they can be in it, they can be relate to. That's because he's pulling a lot of the references from his surroundings. I feel like a good storytellers are able to pick stories in everyday lives that maybe regular people might just ignore or just not even see. At least the writers or the storytellers that I admire tend to be able to do that. They just see beauty in everyday lives. We want to create stories that family can relate to. But at the end of the day, that's because I have a family that's really important to us, and I want to create something my kid can enjoy and I can enjoy, because that's what I want to watch. And I think in the end, you have to create what you want to watch first. And hopefully what you want to watch is what other people want to watch too. I don't think I ever really thought about it as much before I became a father. I started to think about next generation. And that's when I realized throughout my career that I've been given, I've been passed on by the people, who I mentor, who I respected, who mentored me. And of course, it's not that I didn't know that, but I felt like it really hit me after I had a child, to do the same. I have to do the same to these people that comes, in the next generation. I really emotionally, like deep inside, it really didn't hit me until I had my kid. I think both Robert and myself really enjoy that aspect of life. Like working with less experienced people and not just help them, but just grow with them. That was something really was important to us. So although our goal is to create films at Tonko House, one of the first projects we did was the online education class, and we poured a lot of thought into it. How can we maximize our, knowledge, just sharing our knowledge with as many people as possible, but how can we make it really clear that people who watch our online education course understand what we're doing, what we're trying to teach. We put a lot of effort and heart into it, and we would like to continue doing that because we really believe in that part too, because we are where we are because of our prior generation sharing their knowledge with us. At Tonko House, we have an intern right now. We are really trying hard to get him, properly trained. But it's fun when, when young artists are struggling but learning and growing. To see it, it's inspiring, and we kind of need that around us so that we can do the same too. So yes, it is a huge part of our operation and our career. We want to keep asking ourselves why we're making what we are making, and hopefully with our films that we can share the reason why we're making it and people can feel the reason. So it's not just what it is, but if you can share why this movie or the story or the whatever we make needs to be in this world, I think there's something that hopefully people can appreciate, or at least enjoy. That's our hope. If our films or the things that we create can be a part of something that can bring the light to the world, we would love that. That's our goal. Because the world right now is not bright, but there's always light you can walk towards, and I think all of us, I'm sure, we want to be a part of that, momentum to bring light. We need it, and if we can be a part of it, that would fulfill our goal, I think.